Andy Cohen, the most powerful man at Bravo, publicly shut down Tamra Judge's story about Shannon Beador's alleged meltdown. And instead of backing down, Tamra did what Tamra always does. She fired right back. When Andy went on his radio show and insisted there was no big drama at The Quiet Woman and that he happily paid the bill, Tamra responded with a pointed message of her own, essentially saying Andy doesn't know what he's talking about because he wasn't even in the room when it happened. So now we have a genuine standoff between a housewife and the boss of the entire network, and it's all over a $540 dinner. Let's break down exactly what Tamra said and who's actually telling the truth. Quick recap for anyone just catching up. A couple weeks ago, Tamra went on Jeff Lewis Has Issues and claimed Shannon Beador had a meltdown at the Quiet Woman restaurant when the venue didn't automatically comp the group's bill. Tamra said Shannon felt entitled to a free meal because Rock has given the restaurant years of free publicity. She said the bill wasn't even that high. It was like $540, just apps and drinks. And Tamra painted herself as the hero who went to the owner, made Shannon's case, and got the charges reversed. That story went viral and made Shannon look dramatic and entitled. But then Andy Cohen, who was actually sitting at that table, stepped in with a completely different version. On his SiriusXM show, Andy said it was the greatest night, that the restaurant staff were warm and accommodating, and that he personally paid the bill and left a big tip. He said the general manager only offered to comp the meal after he'd already paid and walked out the front door, and Andy dismissed the whole thing, saying, "I don't think there's any big kind of drama to this story." So Andy essentially called Tamra out, publicly contradicting her account and suggesting she blew a non-event into a viral headline, and that's where Tamra fired back. Just one day after Andy's comments, Tamra responded on social media with a sharp, defensive message. Her core point? Andy wasn't there for the part that actually happened. She said, and I'm paraphrasing her response, that Andy wasn't even there when it happened, and she pointed out that the meltdown characterization actually came from Jeff Lewis, not from her directly. In other words, Tamra is arguing that the drama with the bill happened at a moment Andy either didn't witness or wasn't paying attention to, and that she was just responding to Jeff's framing on his own podcast. Now let's actually break this down, because both of these things can be partially true. Here's the thing. Andy Cohen is a busy man at a dinner with a whole table of housewives and cameras around. It's entirely possible that Shannon expressed frustration about the bill at a moment when Andy was distracted, in conversation, or simply not tuned in to that specific exchange. Andy paying the bill and Shannon being annoyed about the bill are not mutually exclusive. Both could have happened. So Tamra's defense, "You weren't there for that part," isn't crazy. It's actually a pretty reasonable way to reconcile the two stories. But here's where Tamra's response gets a little slippery, because she's now trying to distance herself from the word meltdown by attributing it to Jeff Lewis. Let's go back to the tape. On the podcast, Jeff said Shannon was mad that the Quiet Woman didn't pick up the check, and Tamra's response was, "Oh, Shannon had a meltdown. Oh yeah." That's a direct quote. Tamra is the one who said the word meltdown. Jeff said Shannon was mad. Tamra escalated it to meltdown and added, "Oh yeah," for emphasis. So, while it's technically true that the conversation started with Jeff, Tamra can't fully pin the meltdown characterization on him. Those were her words, enthusiastically delivered. That part of her clapback doesn't quite hold up, and that's really the crux of why this is such a mess for Tamra. Because when the most powerful person at Bravo publicly contradicts your gossip, you're in a tough spot. Andy has no real reason to lie about paying a dinner bill. Tamra, on the other hand, has a well-documented, complicated history with Shannon. They were part of the Tres Amigas until that friendship exploded, and Tamra got dropped from their live tour in 2024. So Tamra has motivation to make Shannon look bad, and Andy doesn't. That imbalance makes Andy's version more believable to most people, which is exactly why Tamra came out swinging so fast. Here's where I land. Tamra's core defense, that Andy didn't witness the specific moment, is genuinely reasonable, and it's probably how both stories can be true at once. Shannon likely did grumble about the bill, Andy likely didn't clock it as a big deal, and Tamra likely inflated annoyed into meltdown for a juicy podcast moment. But by refusing to back down and instead doubling down against Andy Cohen himself, Tamra's turned a silly little bill story into a public credibility contest with her own boss right as season 20 kicks off. And that's a risky game, because you can win an argument with Shannon Beador. Winning one against Andy Cohen? That's a whole different ballgame. Do you believe Andy or Tamra? Pop off in the comments. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!